of a brand new tape being narrated by Martin Sheen and directed by a two-time Emmy Award-winning documentary director about HAARP. How many of you here are familiar with HAARP? See, that's why I love this group. You know, I have to change my entire speech and because everyone here is familiar with HAARP, they understand Tesla, you're far advanced, so this is going to be a lot of fun for me. So if I look down at my notes, please forgive me. All right, well, we're going to be seeing part of the video in just a little bit, in about 5 or 10 minutes. And we'll be just showing a clip of about 15 minutes or so. To start off with, I would like to say a quote, which is, "Science has put a perversion of itself unless it has as its ultimate goal the betterment of humanity." Now, I'm speaking to every single person here because I know there's physicists out here, researchers, scientists, doctors, those that are just interested in knowing more about free energy, what's happening in the world, and as far as science. Exotic research, at this point, I do want to end up saying thank you to Steve Elswick for inviting me. We're approaching a time in our lives, in this world, in our history, in which our very own, our science is directing us back to ourselves. The very nature of our being, as you well know, because you've been here all day and we've been talking about frequencies and vibrations and electromagnetics. Whoa. Hey, I think I spoke the right word. Don't you think so? I see. We are energy. You can see it just by the tree that fell behind me. It's like I must be emanating it from the back of my head. Everything and everyone is frequency and vibration. The earth is electric and magnetic, as you well know, and so are we. We're electric and magnetic. Every cell in our body has a small magnet in it called magnetite. We have a north pole and a south pole, so does the earth. The earth has a grid system, and so do we. And when my background is not in science. It's actually from the arts. I heard about HAARP about 1.5 years ago, and my life changed. I started understanding how we're made up, and how the earth is made up, and how everything is interconnected and interweaved. And I decided to go ahead and produce this video in which looked at both sides of the issue. We used the same questions and had the independent scientists' theories and answers, and I interviewed the Navy Air Force, Phillips Lab, and put this film together looking at the same questions and seeing how the answers showed themselves. It was very eye-opening. Truly, we ended up getting reaction in areas that I had no idea that those in power really had no idea about, which is about that humans are energy. The whole film changed after John Heckscher. I don't know how many of you are familiar with The Players, but I read a book by Dr. Nick Begich and Gene Manning, and then did a lot of research along with my director, such as the Extraordinary Science, Science Magazine, Popular Science. There wasn't that much out there to get this information from. But when we started doing the interviews with the Navy and Air Force, we saw that there was a lot of differences even between the different factions or the different areas of Phillips Lab. From Massachusetts to New Mexico, when we asked certain questions, New Mexico gave a different answer or didn't quite know how to answer it, because I see that there's a lot of departmentalizing. Well, when we interviewed John Heckscher, which is the director of the project, and we asked him about how humans were energy, and he said, energy? He got very frustrated and very perplexed, and he said, energy? Humans are energy? What are you saying? Humans are energy? And that changed the film. So what you'll be seeing in just a few minutes will be just a cut. We actually don't go into the bioelectromagnetic information. It's a little bit further into the film. It's an hour-long film, and we're going to be showing about 15 minutes of it. And then I'll take questions, but I'll be speaking right afterwards. Try to keep it right there for that hour so you can go and get something to eat prior to your 7 o'clock. But first of all, let me see. I think this would be a good time right now to just show the film, and then we can go from there. How does that sound? Ladies, gentlemen, please. Could somebody hit the lights back here, please?
The Earth is more unstable now. It wobbles more than it used to. The atmosphere is speeding up and the Earth is slowing down. The Earth's core is getting hotter. The magnetic north is changing. The sun is more active and older than we once thought. Everything is more unpredictable, and humans seem always willing to push things to the limit. The late Carl Sagan said, "We've arranged a global civilization in which most crucial elements profoundly depend on science and technology. We've also arranged things so that almost no one understands science or technology. We might get away with it for a while, but sooner or later, this combustible mixture of ignorance and power is going to blow up in our faces." Imagine the Earth's atmosphere, also known as the ionosphere, as a thick soap bubble. It is a membrane, a natural electrically charged shield around the Earth, protecting all life from deadly solar radiation.
We have to have the atmosphere for survival. I don't think we should do anything to damage it.
Without the ionosphere, I'd be fried, you'd be fried. All life on Earth would be fried.
In 1912, Nikola Tesla, a visionary genius, saw ways to tame the sky, to make the atmosphere glow. He developed...
Are minuscule compared to those.
Oh, there you go. Sorry to do that to you. But we have a limited amount of time. And if you'd like to see the whole production, the tapes are for sale. I bet you didn't know I was going to say that, did you? Also, for the conference, we have a T-shirt and the video, which is normally $29.95, and for the $30, you get the T-shirt and the video for $30. So you get a free T-shirt. How many of you knew all the information that you just saw on the video? Great. It gives me an idea of what I'm speaking to. For those that are new to some of the information, there is a lot more, and I'll be actually speaking in regards to that in just a minute. The Navy Air Force, using HAARP primarily to recreate what the sun does naturally, to study the auroral regions. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the amount of solar activity we're having right now. Well, it is activity in which is breaking all records. There is absolutely, this is the concern that the Navy Air Force has, and that's why they are really doing a lot of this, as they're saying, that they're doing the experimentation in regards to HAARP so they really understand when those solar flares happen and their satellites get knocked out, how they can bypass the system and literally keep their satellites up. Now, we're having more solar activity than ever before, and it's getting worse. In the next year and a half, we'll have more solar activity, and they're very afraid that all the satellites are going to go out. Communications and our nation's security will be in trouble because of our satellites. Now, if we can bypass this, we can create what, and that's what a lot of the studying is, the experimentation, is learning what the sun does naturally. We can create our own aurora borealises. And with this information, they're hoping that when these solar flares that are increasing in intensity, that they can end up controlling it and keeping their satellites up. But independent scientists are saying that with the change of intent, it's all intent, same technology, you can end up taking high-frequency radio wave transmissions, being able to bring those back down after you manipulate them in the, up in the auroral electrojet and altering the magnetosphere to do that. Bring it back down to the Earth, and instead of looking for just missile silos, underground tunnels, gold, oil, and being able to communicate with submarines, that the intent by the change can be used for geophysical warfare, for mind control, because ELF waves is what our brains work from. Our brains can entrain to these frequencies. It can also affect global weather, being able to manipulate and control weather, some people say, some researchers and scientists are saying. The U.S. News and World Report, actually a few months back, and I have actually on my table some of these articles when you go inside the other room, talks about non-lethal weaponry and talks about ELF waves. It talks about shock wave weapons, that they'll just hit you with a big burst of ELF, and your stomach and everything will start jumbling inside, and you will just fall down and have diarrhea, and that's it. This is very interesting. This is no longer, is it science fiction? This is science fact. We can end up creating earthquakes with extremely low frequencies, with vibrations, with resonances. This weather control, in 1976, we signed a treaty with 60 other countries saying that we would not use weather modification as a weapon of war. This was in 1976. I don't know, but I sure do believe that we haven't stopped our experimentation. And as far as affecting brain waves, well, that has been being worked on for a long time, especially in Russia. Russia was really the foremost in working with a lot of extremely low frequencies with the human brain. And as time has gone on, our future, and as our science and our technology is moving so incredibly fast. You know it. Some of you out there are some of the ones responsible for that quickness, that speed. But see, we're responsible for what we create. Once you invent something, you cannot uninvent it. We're just responsible in how we use it. And because of funding sources, oftentimes, you don't always have enough money. And when we invent something, you can either use it for the betterment of humanity, or we can sometimes look at the uses in military means. We're no longer in an us and them scenario. Cold War is over, and we need to take a look at where we're moving forward in the future. Our Earth and the magnetics are becoming, our Earth is slowing down. The magnetics are becoming weaker. The frequency, our frequency of the Earth, the rhythm, the pulse, the beat, the heart of the Earth is raising. You know, it's been 7.8 since recorded time, and now, in the mid-'80s, it went to 8 point, then 8.2, and then 8.5, and now it's sitting at about 9. It's raising, but the magnetics are slowing down. The sun is becoming more active, literally bursts of like X-ray bursts are coming out of the sun right now. And those waves are coming through 93 million miles across space and slapping up against our atmosphere. That's affecting our magnetics. So many things are affecting us. I just finished talking to Duncan Rhodes of Nexus Magazine 3 days ago. Excuse me, gentlemen, they're on the sound, ladies. And he said there's 600 volcanoes erupting underneath the ocean right now. Right now, 600. I said, really? I said, I want to get paper on this. And he goes, I'll get it to you. That means that the oceans are warming with erupting volcanoes, besides those that are on the actual surface of the Earth in regards to land. but are heating up the oceans. And we said the El Nino effect. Well, this is continuing. Our Earth is changing faster than it ever has. Our magnetic north is changing faster than it has ever happened. So literally, they are changing the runways on airports, at the airports. You know, they normally go with compass headings. They're repainting these. Now, it's always shifted. It's always changed, but when it changes up to the next 10th degree, they need to end up repainting. And last year, they were repainting compass headings on airport runways all over the United States. And those are all factual, and you can check those out. These are natural occurrences that are happening to our Earth. But we have also been blowing and doing experimentation in our atmosphere for 50 years. Blowing up nuclear bombs, doing nuclear testing, hydrogen testing. And we have been continually, every time we put a space shuttle into the air, we blow a hole into the ionosphere. Well, as the Navy Air Force say, it will just close back together. But there's over 9 ionospheric heaters, 9 that we know of. And they're not speaking to each other. There's no communication between one country and the other. Norway has Tromsø. We have 3. We have one in 2 of them in Alaska, one very small one, and then we have HAARP, which is the largest in the world, and then one in Puerto Rico. Now, with all the experimentation that we're doing in the ionosphere, all of them that can open up holes because it heats up the ionosphere, and the high frequency literally like tears or rips the ionosphere, along with all of the experimentations we've been doing for the last 50 years, this could also be an effect of why weather changes are happening. I believe they're going to continue to happen. I believe that it's not going to end up getting better. It's actually going to possibly become more extreme. And unless we start taking a look at the responsibility that we have as citizens about finding out more about it, talking to your friends, your neighbors, those that you work with, letting them know more about it. And this technology is not necessarily bad technology. I mean, high frequency you use, we've heard it all day long for health. But you can also end up using it for military purposes that are not necessarily are we in harm, but we are the biggest and the best nation, and I love my country. But we need to be responsible. There's no independent scientists, no independent consultants that have been working on this. It's only been military driven. It has only been the Navy, Air Force, Phillips Lab. It's sort of like asking Philip Morris to do a study on cancer. You have to have independence. We have to have a communication. We have to have an opening where we take a look at what we're doing in these high energy experiments and look at how the effect happens. And further on in the video, you have John Heckscher saying, we don't know what's going to happen, and that's why we experiment. But we're talking 1 billion watts of pulsed power, and it can get larger. It's only 100, it will be 180 antennas when it's finished. Last summer, we were only sitting at about 70 antennas finished. But in each case, when they test them, they turn them on and test them. Now, Dr. Nick Begich feels that it is communication control, possible mind control, global communications, being able to have global communications. But other researchers and scientists are going out there with other theories. Jerry Vassilatos, which actually wrote a book called Secrets of the Cold War Technology, Project HAARP and Beyond, feels that the experimentation and the research is actually being used as we study the auroral electrojet to be able to pull down the aurora and be able to use it as natural energy. Whomever taps that natural energy of the Earth's systems first can really control a lot of things. It's all about communications and energy. You know, that's where the big money is. That's where the big control and it is in life. I mean, we all know that. Jerry Vassilatos has been really knocked down for his theory, but it's a very interesting one because there is on record that there has been times where radio transmission has literally from the radio stations up in the Arctic area pulled down the aurora, right down the antenna and the frequencies had pulled down where literally the technicians, everything started buzzing and their bodies started having like arcing, and they ran out of their trailers, and they could see that they had pulled the aurora down. That happened in 2 occasions. And the natives in that area have, well, it's wives' tales, or it's part of the culture, or a part of their belief system, is that you don't go whistling and singing in the aurora area because it's called the backward death. Their ancestors have been found literally electrocuted or fried with their back like this. So, you know, there's a very interesting concept that, and for those people that are out there that are in the new energy field. All I know is that things are moving very quickly, and I'll be looking at doing another HAARP too as more information comes along. I would like to just look at my notes here for just a second. The 1/3 of the world are what's called sensitives. They're sensitive to electromagnetic pollution. And we're weaving and interconnecting our lives in a way that I think our electromagnetics, of course, hold keys to the mysteries of our lives and what's ahead of us in regards to medicine, in regards to health. It is energy in regards to understanding how we are made up and start treating our earth as a part of ourselves. A consciousness shift must happen. We're a vibration and frequency. Well, as the Earth's frequency raises, so does ours, because we're affected. And I think that is really where our responsibility lies. As we become more aware, we speak it, we live our lives in a way that has to do with the raising of vibration. And when we are an example, and we live our lives that way, we affect everyone around us. We affect our family and our friends. And you become an example without saying, you should do that, you should do this. You start living your life differently, and it will affect the whole. And I think this is one of the ways in which a mass consciousness, I believe in the 100th monkey. How many of you are familiar with the 100th monkey concept, okay? Right. Well, what it is after one monkey starts, and then the second monkey, and then the third monkey, and pretty soon after the 100th monkey, it becomes like law, it becomes a part of the existence, and then it is a part of the nature. Well, mass consciousness works that way. And as we understand it, and as we pass it on and we live our lives that way, I think this is the way that open communication, talk to your representatives, your senators, write 60 Minutes, 2020, and say, I'd like to know more about this. Or just do your study and your research, which is why you're here today, which is fantastic. I'm just so glad to be a part of you being here and being able to show such minds, such interest, such imaginations as that are sitting in these chairs today. Earth is changing. It definitely is. And we're seeing those unprecedented natural events occurring. Let me see. I was talking about Earth's magnetics. Oh, this is very interesting. In 1987 is when a lot of these shifts started occurring. A lot of these started happening in 1987. And it started changing with the frequency raising. And in 1991, a new frequency started radiating from our sun. I don't know if you know how many of you know this. It's like a new band of light. And those are natural occurrences. Our sun is going through tremendous changes. You know, it's really starting in the late 80s. The solar flares. Know that this is happening, and this is going to affect our very daily lives, and especially it's going to grow until about 2000, 2001. The Air Force, Navy, our government is very afraid that all the satellites are going to be knocked out. If that does happen, then there is so much that is going to be affecting us, not just physically and mentally, but it is going to affect all of the computers. You know, you've already heard about that. 2000, when 2000 comes around, just for the fact that 2000, the four numbers are going to affect it. But actually, it's the solar flares. Living into our highest vibration, we must stop and start building a sustainable future. in regards to these experiments. This new energy revolution that we're having right now is really quite amazing. I mean, it is opening up a whole new paradigm in science and technology. And we really need to take a look at this. I mean, it's going to break open, and the Industrial Revolution is going to look like minuscule in compare. I mean, this is the computer age. This is the age of information. We can't keep secrets when everyone can talk to each other. It's not going to be easy to keep secrets anymore when everyone can talk to each other on the computers. Oh, that's fascinating. That's incredible. We're in a time in which many energy devices, and I'm going to say this because we're working with them here, are and have to be scaled appropriately to their use, their end use, and not be overused or applied to weapons. I say that to you inventors out there. We'll have more independent people, more private citizens coming forth, giving funding. We have to end up looking at how we end up creating organizations that support the scientists and your inventors, your doctors. We just can't get the funding in relation to military purposes. This is very, very, very important. Anyway, I'm going to ask if there's any questions at this point. I know that you, I'm sure, have quite a few of them. And I just want to let you know that we're not at a constant anymore. The sun is cooling down. The earth is becoming hotter inside. Things hurt, so that the actual pulse of the world. Magnetics are changing, becoming weaker overall because the earth is slowing down. Things are not at a constant anymore, and we have to adjust because of those. Any questions, please? Yes, sir.
I know that Tesla in New York City created an earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any knowledge as to what that was that done in a similar manner to what HAARP is doing?
Right. Well, literally, HAARP is Tesla technology. All right? The man is one of the most important inventors of all of our time, and people don't even know about him. Well, in 1936, the FBI took those papers, his patents. He's had over 1,000 patents. And we've been working on them. It has been the basis. That's why, do you wonder why he's not in the history books and why we're not teaching him in school? I just came back from the National Media Network. It's for educators, Educational Media Conference in Oakland. And I showed this to 35, I had 35 educators that were there, and they can watch the films that are up and then talk to the producers. And I had 11 distributors to buy educational videos, see HAARP. And when I came up to them afterwards and said, hello, you've seen my video, and they go, oh, which one is that? And I said, Holes in Heaven, the HAARP video. And their smile dropped from their face, and they did not know what to say to me. And they said, you know, I don't know what to say. I didn't know about this. I don't know anything about this, and I don't know how to sell it. I have to end up starting to go out there and hitting the educators and start putting a whole educational package together about electromagnetics, about how we're electromagnetic and how frequency and vibration works, and get it to the educators so they can end up buying this information and teaching it to our kids in the universities and colleges, get it to the libraries. Nikola Tesla was purposefully, I think, left out of a lot of things. We know that. Well, why? Because he is the man of the 21st century. Everything he did, everything he worked on, you know, a lot of his patents, the frequency elements about literally creating, splitting the earth in two, you know, geophysical warfare, high-frequency radio wave transmission, I mean, all the way down the line. I was at the plasma weapons. You didn't get a chance to see this, but when I was over at the Navy Air Force, they have, it's called Shiva Star. It's a big capacitor. It's a capacitor bank. You put trillions and trillions of watts of energy in. You hold them, you store them, and 200 millionths of a second, you release it, boom, you've got a plasma ball. And they're so proud of it. And this is incredible. But what we're doing is then using remote control and radio frequencies to be able to control them. And this is, it's on the video. You'll see it. Actually, the Navy Air Force, Rich Garcia, speaks about it. These are the areas in which we're creating. And literally, The Navy Air Force says it's 50 years from practicality, but in Western Australia, 500,000 people in Perth are seeing plasma balls, and it's all about submarines, and submarine base down there, and there's tremendous amount of strategic, high technical science warfare that's happening all around us. That's what our nations, that's what the governments, and not our government, but all the governments, Japan working with ELF, and Germany, we're talking Europe. Everyone is looking at this. This is the warfare for the 21st century. They're called wonder weapons. It's amazing. And also the research in regards to the ionosphere is a new term. It's called ionospheric physics. Yes, any other questions? It's an exciting time. It's a very exciting time. And it is not to end up in any way, and I know I'm putting a couple of people to sleep in the audience, I see, but it is something to wake up with. It's time to wake up and say, so that's what's happening. That is what our imagination, everything you know that you have learned here today, think about if you put it into practicality in another area, military-wise. And you can take what the military is doing and putting it into the betterment, the growth, new energy, new medicines, ways of healing your bones with high frequency. It's all about intent, folks, and it's how you live your lives. Simple. It's exciting. Electricity isn't simple. It's not that difficult. His patents, you know, anybody that is working in this area will see how it works. This. It all interconnects. And all the things that are happening out there are interconnecting. Everything that you see here, the people that you hear speak. There's a reason why all this is coming together now. It's exciting. Any other questions? Let me go through this. Let me see if I have left anything out. You're doing experiments, we're responsible for what comes out of them. Our science is more sophisticated today, science and technology, than ever before, ever in recorded history. Think of the chaos theory. And let me see. How many are familiar with some of the I would love to be able to go ahead. There was so much in the film in which, unless I showed it to you, you would not have reference points. But how many are familiar with the fact that we are using plasma weapons and we are working in ELF using extremely low frequencies and doing geophysical warfare, being able to go ahead and create earthquakes, being able to change weather? How many are familiar that we actually have been able to create lightning? Okay. Well, I'll tell you a little story. When we talked to John Heckscher, actually the geophysical department at the Fairbanks of Alaska, and Dr. Nick Begich gave us some information in regards to a program called AIM, in which you create lightning from above, from a satellite. You create lightning from above. And when we talked to the man at the geophysical, actually, he was a scientist over at the Geophysical Institute in Fairbanks, Dr. Kahn, and we said, Dr. Kahn, we asked him about AIM, and he denied knowing anything about it. And he goes, I don't know anything about it. Later we asked him again, and he goes, yes, well, yeah, right. Yeah, I remember, yes, they're making lightning, right. But don't talk to anybody about that. I talked to you about it. I mean, they'll get mad. He started to shake. We went to Philip's lab, talked to John Heckscher, the director of the project. And when we brought up AIM, he said yes, but we've stopped AIM because of it being too dangerous. There is a lot of black projects. HAARP is not one of them, all right? HAARP is open to the public. You can even go in and take a tour of HAARP if you'd like. They have tours every year. You cannot have a black project for 180 antennas that are sitting in the middle of the Alaskan outback in Gakona because you can't hide them. But up to 8 years ago, Dr. Eastland made sure to let me know. He said, Paula, it was black up to 8 years ago. We're becoming more bold in it because we have to. It is something in which we need to know more about. And that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying to you folks, is the fact that we're not trying to stop anything. We're trying to educate and say we must slow down with our high-powered experimentations using billions and billions, trillions of watts into the magnetic lines of force. What will happen? We do not know, and that's the truth. Anything else, folks? Yes, sir.
When will your video be available?
It is available right now. We literally got it from the printer right before we came here. It is, see the colored box. I ended up financing this video. I sold my house. I sold my business, and I used my credit cards. I still owe $6,000 on it.
Buy one.
You have to buy one. I'd like every single person in here to buy one. It will help support the cause. It goes right back into the work again. But yes, they're available right now. Nexus Magazine, everyone's starting to buy them, and they're being sold. Yes, sir. You back here? Listen, I'll get as many as you want. All right, I'll get them. I have plenty here. But if you want to buy some for some presents, if you want to end up giving them as a gift, and I'll work it out. I'll give you a bookstore discount. I'm even calling the bookstores around the area. That's all I can do. This was done by a grassroots level, by people like you sitting in the chairs, okay? I ended up going to small little towns, and thank you for going up to the microphone. I went to small little towns. This is how this was finished, and on the back end of this film, you'll see names and names and names and names of people. I call them all the angels, because they were independent people from little towns that would get me into their living rooms and bring their family and friends, and I would speak, and they would give me a donation. The International Documentary Association was my fiscal sponsor, so if you wanted to end up giving another donation other than buying a video, it is completely a tax-deductible donation. That's how grassroots works. Yes, sir.
So you actually traveled on site to help produce some of this video?
Yes, we went to Alaska. Actually, my director, we had to go back into the editing room 4 times. My director was threatened when she was in Alaska, and it changed her. She did not, she kept on going with more of that hard line, and I said, no, we just got to give both the factual information, the same questions given to the Navy and the Air Force and the military, because they're just looking after the best of our interests, you know, they're really feeling that they're doing the right things, and giving the same questions to the independent researchers, and seeing what the questions were. But when we went to Alaska, they stopped her. Actually, John Heckscher stopped us from going into the facility. And I called him, I said, listen, you know, I sold my house for this. I mean, I'm an independent producer. You've got to let me in. They're already on the plane over there, my director and my camera person, because I needed to stay in the States and continue to raise money. And he goes, fine. And I made a lot of promises. I made a lot of promises that I'd show both sides. But they're different sides. But when she got there, she didn't know. She hadn't talked to me from the airport. She went straight into Gakona, and it opens up right into the facility. And she drove straight in, and everyone's there working. The whole place is filled with people, and they're waving to her, and she's waving, and she gets out with my camera person, and a red car comes and zooms up, and this guy hops out and just points his finger at her and says, you've already broken your first promise, which really was the promise I gave to John Heckscher about that we wouldn't be there until the following morning. And she goes, huh? What? And she immediately calls me and says, they told me I broke my first promise. And they've been following me, because after she left, they were followed, of course, and they were followed all the time. They were in Alaska. And I said, I immediately called John Heckscher and Roy Heitman out of Massachusetts. And I said, listen, she didn't know anything about what we talked about, you know, yesterday. She just arrived. And he goes, Paula, we don't, that man works for us. We don't work for him. We don't feel like you broke any promises. And then when she came back to Los Angeles and was doing cutting, there was a guy taking pictures right outside her place. I've been on the road. I mean, you know, I sort of sold my house and stuff, so I have been very hard to find. And so I'm here and there, but she had one home, and she felt very, very, she was influenced, and it was starting to influence her editing, and we had to go back in the editing room 4 times to try to keep it even as I could make it.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, just up until just a few years ago, there was not much in the ways of PR on that whole project until attention started getting on it. with the work of Nick Megich and stuff.
Nick Begich has done phenomenal.
And did you guys film the actual, all the signs and stuff out? I was just up there 3 weeks ago. And did you guys get those signs? All the no trespassing, you'll be prosecuted and all that around the
I didn't see. I didn't
fences?
want to end up. I really tried to use material that didn't sway it one way or the other. Try to set up. I went and got Rich Garcia after the fact, because when you see the video, John Hector gets nervous, really nervous, and my director called him a nervous Jervis. And I wanted to make sure that there was a credibility, you know, and that we showed that they truly are feeling that this is safe, and that there's an opening of communication, and that there isn't any problem. But I had to get Rich Garcia in there as another spokesperson, because John actually loses his temper, and you'll see it in the video. He loses his temper, especially when we ask him if it's a part of Star Wars.
Right.
We ask him if it's a part of Star Wars, and he starts to shake and goes, Star Wars, Star Wars. Nobody's asked me if this is a part of Star Wars. You know, why didn't he just answer it? So I needed to get another interview in there, because I don't want anyone, I want the truth out, but I don't want it to look like a setup.
Right, that sounds very fair. Speaking of one last thing I wanted to mention about up there, did you happen to also go up to the Fairbanks Institute there and check out
Geophysical Institute.
the Cray computer and all that process? Did they speak about the connection there?
Well, we were going to. In regards to when we ended up coming back the next day, I told you the story about how everyone happened to be there when she came in that first day. When we came back the next day to do the interview, no one was there. Only the caretaker. And we talked about the Cray computer at that point, and they didn't really want to talk about the Cray computer. I mean, if it's just for why do we need such a huge computer to end up with this data? It is not said in the film, but yes, we did interview and we did talk about it, but then it was going into a whole other thing, like, why are you needing so much of this? You know, I just wanted to give the facts. And, but yes, we did just talk about it, and we did have it, and they asked, why do you need a computer like that? And they said it's just an old one that they had.
All right, very good. Thanks for the presentation. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anything else, folks?
What else they say about the computer?
They didn't talk too much about the computer. They just said that primarily the 2 times we brought it up was just saying that there's many places that have these computers, and they're sort of getting obsolete and old, and it just happened to be one that they had, and it didn't mean anything. I have to say that my personal belief that there's a lot of departmentalizing, and a lot of people don't even know what's going on inside. They only know enough for their own job. And that when we saw really different answers from representatives of Phillips Lab, I did not want to show that. I don't want to end up doing a setup. I want to have an opening of communication. I've got the Navy Air Force saying on this video that they'd be willing to listen to an independent team of scientists. We got them to say that, because I asked them, I said, can they end up speaking to the fact that if we pull an independent team of scientists together, because there's no consultants or independents working on this, that they'd be willing to listen? And Rich Garcia, which is the public relations guy, says, absolutely. We'll listen to an independent team. Now, I don't know if that's just listening to them and then going off and doing what you're doing, but there's an opening there, and I want an opening of communication. We can't afford an us and them scenario. And I know it's a big one I'm biting off, but I'm committed for the rest of my life to teach people about who Nikola Tesla is. This is a life thing. This is not going to be passed over with my next project, which I have many. I just came back from England, believe it or not, dealing with crop circles and talking to the independent scientists and mathematicians, primarily the mathematicians looking at mathematics, sound and frequency element, and the electromagnetic element. Just looking at those elements. And there's a lot of researchers out there that are starving. They're having a hard time keeping funding. And I'm going to do whatever I can to end up keeping that funding going, because that's very interesting. And there's a lot of other things. The new energy. I want to do a video about new energy inventions. So I need funds, and I need raising those funds. But it is a life it's a life commitment, so I'm not worried about it. Everything will be in its own time. Anything else, folks? I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for sitting here and being interested enough to being here for this entire event and doing what you're doing out there for the whole. You're doing stuff for us all, and I thank you. All right.